you go by series, somebody had this earlier today. StatMuse obviously doing a great job. Warriors points in the paint by series: 44.8 in the first round, 48.7 in the second round, 49.2 in the conference finals, and now in the NBA finals, they're scoring 30.7 points in the paint per game.
Ooh.
That is a ginormous difference, and the reason for that is this Celtics defense is extremely legitimate in the half court. Especially against the Warriors because Boston has so much size. We talked about this with Steve Bulpett last week. You asked what the biggest X factor was. Steve, I think, went defense. I just said size on both ends because Boston is just clearly bigger than Golden State is, especially when Kevon Looney's not in the game. And what is happening is, as much as we complained about the drop coverage that Boston is currently playing, they're doing it for 3 straight games and will continue to do this for a reason. They're obviously okay, and it pains me so hard to say this, somewhat okay with like Steph shooting threes, as long as the rest of their free-flowing offense doesn't give them easy paint touches where they can get easy looks at the basket. I think if you were to ask Ime, he's maybe more comfortable, and I don't even know this, but I guess given what we've seen so far, this has to be sort of a trend. They must be okay with Steph and everybody bombing away from 3 as long as they don't get easy paint touches and opening up their entire offense for everybody. The drop coverage they're playing is working. Steph's going to go off for his, but they've limited the damage, so to speak, especially in the paint. So if you can control that, control your half-court offense, you can win a lot of games. And Rob has a ginormous part of this. Their defense has been historically good. I've pointed out for months that this team has the same opponent field goal percentage as the 04 Pistons. And as much as you want to go back and forth and comparing eras, I don't care about pace. That's still a very impressive number. And they continue to just lock up everybody defensively. I mean, they just have guys that make a lot of sense in this series. Derek White was literally traded for this exact reason. He is exceptional at tracking Steph around screens. Marcus, what he can do on the floor, switching between guys, but still keeping the ball in front of him, absolutely incredible. So as long as Rob stays healthy and allows them to continue to play the way they're playing by pressuring 3-point shooters, but limiting the paint, they're going to be a problem. And as long as they don't turn the ball over, they're going to be a problem. So as long as Rob's healthy, I think they're fine, but that's easier said than done. And I give Rob a ton of credit. Everybody's playing through stuff. But there's a reason why Ime, after the Miami series, pointed Rob out in the locker room. Like, Rob's playing through a lot of stuff. Marcus is playing through a lot of injuries. These guys are hurt.
But Jason Tatum and his shoulder. First play.
He was wincing a minute into game 3.
That is, I know, concerning.
Yeah.
I would push back. I'm not sure that drop, or even as far dropping as they are, is part of the game plan. Rob Williams told us last night that he got yelled at repeatedly by Ime for not being up enough. And Rob said, I thought I was up, but he was like, clearly you weren't, because Steph got off a clean shot. So I think that, as we saw in game 1, it was a tough adjustment to go from the Miami Heat, who you basically could drop against everyone other than Tyler Hero, who missed half the series, to then have to have a very quick switch in mindset and quick with speed as well, and making decisions and how you are adjusting to that. So I do think that is something that they're trying to do. And, the Warriors are really good. There's a reason they're in the NBA finals.
Yeah.
The only thing that gives me pause in game 4, and it is something that we know has plagued this team all season long, and it is their difficulty in dealing with success. So coming off, they're undefeated in the postseason, coming off losses, coming off wins, it's not nearly as good. And to me, when they talk about that, it just feels like the same conversations we have when it comes to the third quarter. We're aware of it. We are trying to fix it. We don't know why it's happening. And it's the same thing with winning. Like, we're trying to instill in our minds that these are must-win games. We just can't bring ourselves to do it. And I can't blame them. Like, I get it. You're trying to trick your mind. You know what's really at stake. And so that's the only thing that gives me pause for game 4. But I do agree with you, Evan, in that their defense is just so good. They have plus defenders at every position. And you look at the Warriors and it feels like they're searching. Steve Kerr, changing up the lineups, changing up the rotations. Nothing has been consistent aside from Steph and Clay and Draymond. And I do think that Draymond is going to ratchet up his intensity and level of sense of urgency for game 4. But yeah, I think the Celtics are the better team, and that's why there are 7 games, because it's supposed to hash that out.
The amazing thing to me, and it's, I guess I don't think anyway, and I'm not going to pretend I'm listening to every talking head on radio and TV, but what's crazy to me, I never thought I would say this about the Celtics in 2022. I said it many times, over the course of the previous playoff rounds, but I never thought I would say it against the Warriors in the NBA Finals. If the Celtics just play their game, they'll be fine. If they just play their game, they'll be fine. And I think there's a reason that everyone goes back to the turnover stat. That is, you can look at any stat you want to. I've been talking about points in the paint. We can look at, whatever opponent field goal percentage. You can go whatever category you want. Ultimately, the most reliable one here in the postseason for the Celtics, turnovers. They turn the ball over 15 times or fewer. And by the way, 15, not a tiny number either. 15 times or fewer. They're like 13-2 or something like that. Whereas, 16 plus, again, bigger number, 16 plus, winless. Not won a single game, 0-6 or whatever the number is. As long as they protect the ball, don't make dumb mistakes leading to easy points on the other side, you will win. We saw it against the Nets. We saw it against the Bucks. We saw it against the Heat. I didn't think, and I'm using this word loosely, I didn't think it would be that simple against a team of the caliber of the Warriors, but it is. Protect the ball. You will win more often than not.
There are 2 things. Number 1, this is not that same old Warriors team. Obviously, there is no Kevin Durant, and it has been 2.5 years time-wise since then. And Klay Thompson has been through 2 massive surgeries since then. So, and Draymond has aged. Steph Curry is 34, which I don't want to be an ageist, but in the NBA, and he's playing
not young.
He's playing phenomenally, but he just is not who he was at 28 when they were in the midst of their run. So that's one thing, and why it is strange to say, but you're not wrong, Adam. The other thing is, I would say that the turnovers are an indicator of the Celtics' overall focus and sense of urgency that they're playing with. And so when they don't have that, it also shows up on the defensive end, and then certain things start to slide. And then because they're so frustrated with the officiating and their mind isn't on strictly the game plan and playing solid, then they start to turn the ball over. They get frustrated, and then they start to let that affect their defense as well. And so it all ties together. But yes, I do agree with you that turnover number is the key.
Which is why, and obviously, like I joked earlier, Evan, about they're up 2-1, 82%, the series is over, right? Like, obviously it's not. The Warriors could take game 2 or 4, make it 2-2. It's a best of 3 at that point, and Golden State has home court again and all that. But if the Celtics actually do this, if they go out and take game 4 and they go up 3-1, I'm not going to say it couldn't happen, but there's just, barring like major injury, if they stay healthy, there's no part of me that believes this team is going to lose 3 in a row.
Well, I'm already on the record, season 7.
What for you, be it entering game 4 or just sort of going forward in this series in general, what's top of mind for you? What has to happen for all of us to be talking about a parade soon?
After ball security, I agree with Evan, and that so much of this is Rob Williams. He was such a game changer in game 3. The way that he protected the rim, how many shots he altered just by his mere presence. That is another thing that gives me pause going into game 4, because he has not been able to get to that level in back-to-back games dealing with this injury. It is a shorter turnaround for both he and Al Horford, who at now 36 years young is trying to raise his game every other day. And so I do think that game 4, to me, the fact that the Celtics are a 4-point favorite was a little surprising.
Anybody taking the Warriors tomorrow or today, depending on listening to the show?
Are we? Is that what you're asking?
It seems like there's a lot of Golden State's going to tie this thing up.
If I'll sort of say to you what I said last week when we were giving our series predictions. If I'm going with my heart, obviously Boston takes game 4. My head believes Golden State's going to even it up.
I just have a feeling, and my feelings are terrible. I am awful at guessing this. I felt like I was going to throw up all day of game 7 in that Bucks series. So Yeah, I am leaning towards Golden State, but I don't want it to seem like I don't believe in these Celtics. I just feel like listening to the Warriors too, the way they talk, and they're like, our championship DNA tomorrow will not be a problem.